What's in your thoughts? Oh, what's in your mind? What fills your head and what leaves it behind? It's too much today. It's too much today.
Hey there, listener. Welcome back to Filling in the Gaps Reroll. We hope you had some great gaming since we last heard from you. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. We're happy to have you here at the table. We're not an actual play podcast, but we do hope that our podcast can help you actually play. We're three DMs who like to create either stories, sessions, one-shots, entire campaigns, usually about the end of the world, by rolling on a table determined by 2 d20s. It's a great way to get your kind of creative juices flowing, really work on your improv and kind of DMing skills. With that, we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm going to be your transition host, David.
I'm going to be your theme host, Malcolm.
And I will be your scenario host, Mambo or Sam, whatever.
And to get us started this week, I have a question that is, what kind of, when you're building a character for a game, what is something that you, I guess, require for every character? Like, it can be in D&D if you really like to have dark vision in whatever character you make, or you want a character that has a natural weapon. When you're building your character, what's something that they always have to have? And I'll go first. I hate playing humans. So really the only thing for me is it has to be something that's not human. I play that in real life, and it's not that fun all the time. So when I go into my game, I want to play something different.
See, I don't have any problems with most of how the characters are. But the thing that always has to have it be is they have to have like a quirk or reason why they are different from every other like person of their type. Like they have to have a purpose in something that's not just like, if they're a tiefling, why is this tiefling adventuring, whereas other ones just like serve something or do, like why isn't this human a farmer? Why did they go out and decide to fight dragons? What is the interesting element to them? So I always, it's a bit of it sounds like a bit of like a fake answer, but I remind the listeners, my first ever character was a wizard dwarf because he thought that dwarves should be able to do magic like those stuffy elves, and that was his thing. So it works for that. So I always try to give my characters like that little bit extra, that bit of oomph for it.
That's good.
I think I'm a combination of both of you. David, 100% agree. Unless my DM straps me down and says, you are playing a human. I hate when my players play humans. I'll let them. I hate it. I hate, like, why would you want to play a human? Like, I just don't, for me, I don't understand it. Mm-hmm. Especially since I'm like, why would you start off with a feat? Why is that, equal when the orc has to start off being dumb? Now, gladly, we're getting away with that. There's scrap in that. But it never made sense to me. And so if I had someone come in as a variant human with a feat, I'd be like, all right, everyone else pick a feat, because it just makes no sense. But for me, it just depends on what mood I'm in, honestly. I'm not someone who's going to ask the party what they're playing. I'm just going to find what I want to play. A lot of the times it's a tabaxi. A lot of the times it is, but I have ventured out. I like playing unique stuff that I don't see very often. So like, if I'm going to be a human, maybe it'll be like try to get to a Kalishtar or something like that with a little extra flavor. Mm-hmm. I just like to have fun with my characters. So I like to find good reasons. I think one of my best characters I've ever made is this furbolg named Norfig Fog, who is just way past his prime, like 800 years old. He was a warlock, and he didn't know he was a warlock, but he had severe dementia. And he was walking around, and he was questing to find his wife, who is this famous adventurer, and he'd like talk about her all the time. But the key to his contract was that it would end, his service to his patron would end once he found his wife and they were reunited. But what he didn't know was that his wife was in the urn around his neck, and she was cremated. So if anyone ever opened the urn the character would just also turn into dust and go inside the jar. But it was like it was like one of the trinkets is like a jar that holds the ashes of hero, an unopenable jar or something like that holds like the ashes of a powerful hero. And so that's how I based off that character. And my party was like, this guy literally has no idea what he's doing. And it was fun.
I will say, in the defense of humans, because one of the best characters I ever played was, well, okay, so one of the characters I was told was my best character, which is a whole different situation than my best character. My favorite. It's just the one I was like, people were like, we deal with this one the most because he is good. Was a guy in his whole, he was just a human. He was a boring human, and the game wasn't exactly D&D, but it was based off of it. And with it, I was like, oh, he just wants to be a knight. And they're like, that's it? That's all he's about? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, that's the crazy quirk. There's nothing else. I was like, he realizes being a knight's expensive, and he needs money. That's why he's adventuring. And the amount of growth and character that came from this one guy, because he realized, like, oh, it's not about money being a hero. People will give you money for doing the right thing, so I have to do the right thing. And then he, like, there was so much story that happened with him that was so interesting. But all of this to say, sometimes if you make like a character that just has like just a little bit and then just puts everything else with room to grow, you can go any direction. It makes it so fun. So also that. So in the defense of humans who are boring and basic and whatever, yes, but that also makes them pretty good blank canvases.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely put. I have someone who plays a human in Bardic Inspiration right now. And you can definitely play it well. You know, obviously, Adventure Zone had a great human in there and such. So I'm not saying you can't play them. I'm just saying I prefer not to ever have to play one.
It's fair, because it's boring. I mean, after all humans really do was just kind of, like, again, we live in a world of people, so that's not super fantasy.
Yeah, plus when I play D&D, I want to escape reality, not jump more into it.
Speaking of escaping reality, I have a question for you, Sam.
Sure, what's up, Malcolm?
Shall we roll?
Let's do it!
All right, so at this point in the podcast, if you haven't listened before, Sam and Malcolm are going to roll a d20 each. We have a table of themes and scenarios. We're going to take the two numbers rolled and jam together, hopefully eloquently, whatever comes about.
Now, I'm using a dice that I found while cleaning my whole room. So I had a whole set of dice that were just hidden in one of the far corners of my room. I don't know. I remember buying them a long time ago. Don't remember them using them for anything, but they're there, and I'm going to use them now.
I am going to use, I think the first dice I ever bought are these nice purple ones that I've been letting one of my players use in the meantime. But they're on my desk, and it shall be rolled. Nice. I got on the scenarios table, I have a 1.
And on the themes table, I got a 5, so this is going to be a low roll episode!
Woo!
All right. We have a theme that I submitted, which is an identity crisis. And there is also a submission for scenarios by Big Ben 220 of Groundhog's Day. So what is the first thing to come to mind when you hear of an identity crisis during Groundhog's Day?
Okay, hear me out on this. I don't know how you'd play it, but this is the story I'm thinking. Every time you die, you jump to a different NPC. So your body is constantly moving. The day plays out the exact same. That is the Groundhog Day. But you have to, like, correct, just like how in Groundhog Day, you have to, like, correct and move from each person. So it's like, you know, Sally doesn't go to get her shoes, and because she doesn't get her shoes from the store, the guy doesn't have enough money. So you have to, when you take over Sally, you have to figure out, oh, I need to go spend money on the shoes so that the guy has enough money, and then that corrects that part. Then you pass over to the guy who gets the money. You have to go to pay off the people who are going to go rob his place, and like you like correct a town that way. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
I like that. I want to expand on that. This reminds me of the anime ReZero, Starting Life in Another World. So basically, as your protagonist goes on, if they die, it takes you back to like, quote unquote the last checkpoint until you until they get to the correct, not correct, but till they get to the next checkpoint, basically. So if say they die, they restart over. They keep all their memories, but they have to keep going and trying to get to the point of the next checkpoint. They don't actually know where that is, but sometimes people die and they don't because the protagonist is like cursed by a witch or something like that. And when they die, they restart, but their experiences stick with them. So say like Malcolm's character dies, but I'm the protagonist, I stay alive, and I get to the next checkpoint, then Malcolm's character is dead in like the story. I wouldn't do this in the game, but just like to help explain if you've never watched it. Really good show, recommended. But anyway, I think it'd be cool if you kind of did that with your players, that as a DM, I would keep a track of different checkpoints to get to or different quests to complete. And when those quests are completed, that character moves on. But if they die, they restart and are reincarnated as a different character. And I'd bring all these random aspects in. So like, all right, you're dead. Roll the wheel of what character you have next, and that character gets in. So that by the end of like, I'd say this is probably a one shot. I do this as a quick one shot thing. By the end of the one shot, your characters have played all of these different, or your players have played all these different characters. So say your first character you make, Malcolm, is like a Lexodon. By the end of it, you could end as a gnome. And everything's like completely different. I think that'd be kind of cool. And it's like the same quest or the same series of actions that happen until they solve it the correct way, or like a way where they don't end up all dying.
Advanced Character Creator 2, Electric Boogaloo. I think that could definitely be a really good way, especially for a party. A Groundhog Day situation is a great way to get a party to get to know each other, too, because it's like, okay, especially with that idea of shared experiences still going over. So it's like, okay, I would even be a tiny bit nicer and have it be that if a character dies, they still have if a person dies, if one of the player characters die, there we go, those are the words, and yet another one gets to the checkpoint, they like get reset in new bodies, but are like, oh, okay, I remember dying, like, oh, that was,
Oh, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit more video gamey.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So that way, maybe they keep all of like their personal selves, but maybe just their race and class get randomized. And that way, it's like, oh, now I have to relearn this whole new body and this all new class system. So then your whole character and such, the dynamics of the group change. You could end up with 5 rogues. You could end up with classes that really shouldn't be together, and then you can make it tactful if like someone's like, all right, I'm not getting a hang of this, I can go create this diversion, you guys can sprint to the end or such, and then you could keep redoing different not different, but you can keep redoing the same scenarios, but each time they finish one, or each time they choose, they have different options to choose from, which create all these alternate timelines. So
I'm not sure who is doing this. I picture like a either deity being or like a really powerful mage.
Combi the zombie.
Yeah. Their whole shtick is they're like a storyteller. And if you want to go and like talk to them, or, maybe this is a trap of some kind that they made, but they have this book of stories that you can pull from, and your party has to go in and basically complete the story. But they are the actors in the story. And so if they do it wrong, they get maimed, they die, or they just don't get to move on to the next chapter.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot. There was this game that had a very interesting premise that I never played. It was called Call of Juarez, and the whole idea is it's this old cowboy telling stories of like, here's what happened in my life when I was dealing with like these, like, there's like different points. In the trailer, what they had was there was a part where he was like, yeah, and I fought off seven sharpshooters at once, and I'm like, oh, 7? He was like, did I say 7? I meant 47. That's how impressive I was. So it would like alter the story as it was going because he wanted to sound cooler. So you could do something like that where it's this person who's like telling this, like you could have, we haven't involved a god in a while in one of our episodes, have like a god character or a powerful being be like, I am telling the story of these heroes, and you're like, who took hold of our lives? Who's like writing our story right now?
We could even bring back a character from an old episode. This one's from one of Rich and Cam's, but you could have your party stumble upon like a cursed torch, like this light that kind of used to work in, was it a library they had before? They had like a cursed evil object, and it was a torch that they used because it lit the way to this Storyland book.
Oh yeah, vague memories of that one.
Oh, yeah. I think maybe, I like the torch idea, because then you could have it as they light the torch in a dungeon. Now like the dungeon itself is reliving the torches, what the torches has seen throughout the years, or the torches' ideas of or whoever cursed the torch, their life story inside this dungeon. And that way it gives you a solid ending, but it also gives you the Groundhog Day of, until you complete the story the correct way, you keep coming back and back to the beginning.
You could have like two separate endings. So you can have the ending that your group wants to get so that they can move forward and get the information or magic item or whatever that they need. And there's the ending that the torch wants that will eventually free it.
So I'm thinking here, what if this is like the biggest mistake of the owner of the torch or whatever it is, and kind of like Ready Player, I think it's in Ready Player 2, which I have not read, but I've heard a lot about. And it's not a good book, apparently. But the concept of it being like, oh, fix my greatest mistake, and then that way I can, like, it can be in either an actual time thing where you're like, oh, I will fix it, and then it's like, haha, you fool, now I'm a powerful wizard. Or it could be like, oh, you help this guy again. It could be kind of like Night of the Liching Dead, where you have this thing where it's like, you help this being, this person, and are they good? Are they bad? Up to you, DM. But it's a thing of you helped fix their life that they couldn't figure out what the details that were wrong were. But there were so many things that were specifically wrong that you'd have to adjust. So it's all it wasn't just that, oh, I didn't get to ask the girl out because she wasn't there that day. It was the girl wasn't there that day because her dad was sick because he fell down a well because of these like big causal effect. And you're just like, okay, solving bit by bit and working backwards towards, okay, now she can go to work and he can ask her out. And then now he's a happy wizard, and now he won't do something dumb that gets him trapped inside of a torch. It's fixing that situation. But I don't want to get too far away from Groundhog Day, because that also, the idea of the repeating day and being stuck inside of it is something I want to make sure we keep alive.
And that's what you would get with the stories, is you would have to repeat them until you got them right. So you'd be seeing the same story over and over again. What
if Groundhog Day is a festival where adventurers can go to right the wrongs they have committed and go back, and they can select one day or one past adventure where they can redo things that have gone poorly?
Now you're starting to make me think of our Bippity Boppity Snooze Witch. A return of her would be great. Having this be like a thing where you can I like festival, but I also just like secret doctor or professional being like, this isn't technically like legal magic. I'm not supposed to do this, but I offer people chances to like change the course of history because nobody really big comes in here. And so you could have it be like that, where your characters are like, oh, we gotta go and fix some stuff. Or they could be hired to work for that agency as a fun, like, one-off thing and be like, hey, you guys are correctors now. Go fix the timeline on what happened with these people or these things.
Ooh, I like that. I like the agency side. Like, this person is stuck in a time loop trying to fix their issue, but they're stuck. It's a time loop. You need to go in and fix it.
Ooh, so someone else is cursed with Groundhog Day. So they tried to solve their problem, and they're just forever stuck in a time loop now because they don't know good time magic, I guess. And they can't get out of it. And they're like, well, now they're just like in Groundhog Day. There's no real way out of it. Even in the ending for Groundhog Day, spoilers for Groundhog Day, he just kind of accepts that, like, I want to live my life the best way I can, and that'll be enough to move forward, and then that's what moves him forward. So to have this guy who's either really holding on to the past, or really or really trying to make things change this specific incident to make it a bit more palpable for him in the future. It's just like, no, man, you gotta just move forward. And that's what you're there to help him do, is like, he's not going to move forward until he like tries everything. And then this is your chance to, and then you could also pop in again as the other characters for the identity crisis part. But also he's having a bit of an identity crisis when you think about it. Can't move forward, having a hard time, constantly reliving the same day over and over again, trying to fix a core mistake he made somewhere. Sounds like that would be. But you could also keep the idea of just jumping bodies of NPC to NPC if your characters wouldn't naturally appear to this person in their world in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have, if you're at the table, or even online, have your characters be switching their character sheets around to different players. That way they start to understand how each player is like, working, and how, just get a better understanding of the group itself. This is a great way to pull that in, especially if it's like the torch aspect, if we go with that one, or if you're working with this agent and this agent's cursed, so maybe the curse affects people in different ways. So for him, he's stuck in this endless loop. But for you, all of your souls have switched. And so now you're trying to figure out how are you going to get yourselves out of this curse. Because, right, I like the idea of Groundhog Day. I know always it's going to be the repetition of waking up, starting the same thing again, waking up, doing the same thing again until you get to that point. But there's always a lesson learned at the end. So as a DM, I would decide on what lesson I want my players to learn, and then I would start going from there. So what do you guys think? What should our players learn from this or get out of it? Because we don't want to just throw this at them willy-nilly and just be like, this was fun.
Attention to detail is good.
Attention to detail.
I like that one. I was going to say moving on, or like accepting the consequences of actions is always a big one with parties. So having it be like, hey, yeah, you stabbed the king. King ain't coming back. Like, this is a guy who maybe is like, I stabbed the king, and this king can't come back, and I keep trying to fix it and not stab him, but I keep doing it. I keep ending up at the place where that happens. And it's like, well, but I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there, David.
You're good. I was just going to say, it would be interesting if your party kind of stumbles into this as themselves the first time, and they see everyone kind of doing their normal actions, and then they're caught by whoever is stuck in here. And rather than being like killed or wiped from existence, they're reborn as the NPC, or kind of reloaded as the NPC when the time reboots. So they have to try and do the actions that they saw those NPCs do in order to avoid being caught by whoever's in the loop.
I think that gave me a really good idea about maybe, so if we go back to the agency scenario of them trying to cure something, and maybe it's like a clinical error, or someone wrote down the wrong thing, so now they're stuck in this loop, and it's like, if only we are like more paying more attention to detail and such like that. And this is a great way for your party to go in and be like, oh, remember all of those magic items I gave you that were helping you, and now you forgot them? This would be a great chance to have those come back. But I thought maybe that if they're in the location itself, and they keep repeating the same day right before the loop started, so they have like those 24 hours before the mission starts, that starts the loop, for them to go in and stop it so the company itself can move forward. But like, what if when they die, they keep coming back as, like you said, different agent members, or different NPCs, or random players that they have to like randomly generate? What if that happens, and once they finish the loop, then your player has the choice of, one, you can come back as your original player, or two, maybe this gives you a chance to find someone who melds better with you. Because I think sometimes when people start playing characters, they get either stuck, or the decisions that they make during the campaign changes who that character is for them, and this is a great way to find a way out without really destroying the campaign or destroying that character.
Yeah, this is a good chance for a name drop reroll. This is but I was thinking, and this is just absolutely not really connected to anything, but for the cause of it, something that is talked about within D&D lore is wild magic storms.
Oh yeah.
Nobody like does anything with them, so I very much think this would be a perfect chance to, especially in like Freaky Friday and like all the other ones, there's always like clouds, thunders, lightning. perfect time to use a wild magic storm and go, boom, there it is. This is what's causing the problem. So it's not even a thing that you can really stop. It's just a thing you have to help the people through. So you're not so worried about what's causing it. There's no real antagonist in this one. It's just, hey, we got to fix a problem and move forward in whatever way we want, whether that's as our characters or as new characters or just surviving it and getting through and being like, I guess we're these people now. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
So just do we want to pick a scenario we want to stick with and continue? Because I think I just kind of have an idea of, to keep with this idea of time, what if we start using a lot of clockwork monsters? So I know, of course, Dungeons and Dragons has a few in there ones, but the Tome of Beast 2 and I think Tome of Beast 1 from Kobold Press have a bunch of clockwork monsters. And I think that'd be perfect to keep track of time, because I think a lot of the times in Groundhog Day scenarios, it's always keeping track of time, of knowing how long you have left, what you have to accomplish. And I would just set up, if we're doing this, specific events that need to be accomplished in order for the party to move on. Just like Adventure Zone with the worm, they had to figure out how to save the girl before the worm blew up, right? The right. Purple worm blew up. Spoilers. So maybe put spoilers for Adventure Zone Season 1 on here in the beginning.
I mean, ultimately that one's not too bad because they do it pretty early on. That's, well, I guess it wasn't clear what they were supposed to do, so yeah. But I like that. I like the idea of there being specific criteria to do. Now, one of our previous guests, the Runesmith, also covered a lot of the creatures that exist within the Mechanus, which is a realm of time. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of dangerous creatures that are very, very set on making sure time runs properly. So I imagine any changes to things would be upsetting to them. So if you wanted to have something a bit more antagonistic or a bit more of a threat, you throw some of those things in there. Now, what those things are called, I don't remember. Watch the Runesmith's video and on the Mechanus, and you'll find some interesting characters to throw in.
That sounds a lot of fun. So this one shot can totally be your entire party playing as a bunch of Modron, which are like the servitors.
They're minions.
Yeah. So you're basically, that's the agency. You work for Mechanus. You're sent out to deal with this time disparity. And jumping into it, you get to, like, possess the NPCs.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really cool.
I like that a lot. Because those are... Oh, hold on, let me find it.
Ooh, and then it could even roll into a regular campaign because you decide that being a different person rather than a Modron sounds dope. And so you just stay in the thing you possess once the time loop is complete.
But then you got Time Police coming after you, which is awesome. Oh, that's so cool.
I like the Modron a lot.
You could build a bunch of different characters and just, like, have them jump in, and you just hand them a sheet. They're like, this is you now. You have, like, the background of being a Modron, but you also have all of the knowledge and abilities of this person that you're taking over. And each jump can be a different sheet. And if they decide to stick with them, you just let them keep that sheet. That's their character sheet now.
Yeah, this is a really good way to test out what types of characters people are going to want to play, because I remember starting off being like, oh, I would like to be a barbarian once, and I was like, oh, I don't get the cool stuff until way later. This isn't as fun as I thought. And then I was like, but let me be a wizard. And I was like, oh yeah, I get cantrips and stuff. People were like, those are super weak. And I was like, I don't care. I'm having fun. I can cast magic, which is not something my human self can do.
I like this a lot now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of kind of pulling an avatar and having it be, to be clear, James Cameron Avatar, not The Last Airbender. There has been confusion before, so... The Blue People Avatar, and having it be like, oh, they're like soul, instead having it be like a soul transfer rather than even you're like connected or plugged in. It's like, no, your whole body is now in this person. So when the thing ends, you're not like, oh, why didn't they just pull me out of the machine? Because I can feel my players asking that question already. So, yeah, it's a reincarnating machine, so I'd be down for that.
I think the only, like, moral quandary there would be is if possessing these people is okay? Like, how would you justify that?
What if instead the Modrons aren't possessing people, but rather replicas of people?
I was going to say, what if they all died anyway? Like, it is the tale of how that's the mistake the person made, is like, everyone in this town dies, you have to figure out how and why. And it's like, okay. And then at the end, if it's like, oh, we can just break out of the time loop, save the people you've saved, like that, or no, I see too many problems already. Yeah, let's go with the replicas thing, Sam. That's way better.
It depends on, like, so I mean, if you want that, I mean, so there's a variant of a rogue Modron too. So you could have it multiple different ways. I think we should need to settle on one soon, just so we can keep going. But they have, let's see, it looks like every once. So Primus is the big boss.
Yes.
And he sends these Modrons out to look at the universe, basically, and make sure time is running at the correct intervals and such, and so everything's going smoothly. What if the latest recon he sends out, the number of players you have, and there's multiple Modrons too, so they could be, the Modron, the Duodron, the Tridron, it goes by numbers, so you get it, Quadron. So he sends them out, and then you can start taking the aspects of these guys to where you finally find a world that is experiencing a Groundhog Day. So maybe not a world, but maybe a town or village. If we stick with a village, then let's name it and get cracking on why it's going through this Groundhog's Day. But in order, or someplace, but where your players are these drones, and they have to take over someone's body. So you can like start listing NPCs, and if one goes like, oh, I want that one, or I want that one, I think it was, they don't believe in I or me, they all believe in we. So I think collectively they wouldn't have morals taking over someone's body in order to save. And maybe if they do take over someone's body, that means that they are permanently stuck there. So like they are that person now. So instead of killing that person or being able to remove themselves, they become them. And that way that person's life continues, they get all their memories, they get all of that stuff back. And that gives your players a chance to really grow the world with you, rather than you just saying, you're playing X, Y, and Z, read your sheets, you should know them. No, or it's like, oh, okay, so you took over the farmer with the pickaxe, or the pitchfork. What's his name? What is he doing? How is he feeling right now? He's been stuck in the same loop for about 2 years now. How does that make him feel? Yada, yada, yada. And they're like, he feels angry and stuff like that. Or, your person wants to play a rogue. They get into the farmer, but the farmer's stats don't always line up. So now they have to like try to recreate this farmer into a rogue. So I think it allows your players to really grow the world with you, rather than you just giving them these sheets and having them try to play your idea, if that makes sense. I think that'd be cool.
I like the idea of them working with you to really develop the characters overall. I would suggest having kind of a base of what the characters are in the first place, which I think you're saying when you're talking about like the farmer.
Yeah. You as the DM would go on and describe so get your NPC generator going, because you want to really describe a whole slew of these NPCs to give your players options to take over, right? You never want to force someone into something they don't want to play. So give them a lot of options in order to really find the proper NPC for them.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is, I don't know how many people are fans of Venom, and I don't know when that new Venom movie is coming out. But Carnage, the character, is known to be kind of what we want the people to be. It's not this idea of, with Venom, it's the idea of two entities in one body, right? That's the whole thing about Venom. But with Carnage, the whole thing is the two entities kind of merge and make a new thing. And I think that's kind of what we would want to do with the Modron and inhabiting these bodies. It's not like an invasion. It's like hi, do you want to fuse? Like, it is more... It's more Dragon Ball Z fusion.
Yeah, except permanent.
Than it is... Yeah, it's more permanent, and it is a thing of, okay, fusing with that person didn't work, and we got knocked back to the beginning. Let me try a different person to fuse with and see if that works. And it's not like those people necessarily die. unless it's unless you're that type of DM and you want that to happen. But they don't have to. You could just then go, okay, I died in that body, so that means that won't work. The way I was going to try to do those things won't work. Let me try again in the next loop and be a different person. And that way I can help out with this situation. Again, whatever problem was plaguing the town, it could just be a problem caused by the wild magic storm itself. Like, you can do a lot of different things. Again, using Mechanist this way makes Mechanist a way more interesting place. Because let me tell you, when I first heard about it, I was like, man, it sounds like it's really cool, but then no. But yeah, I think this is a great use of that, and it could really benefit the party.
Yeah, I think the idea of them, asking that NPC if you'd like to fuse, maybe giving a rundown of like, we're here to help. If we fuse, we can actually combine our powers and become a way to defeat this, because we have the knowledge, but we can't interfere without being connected to someone from the realm. So that way it's like, because there's a sacrifice of them giving their selves up for the greater good of the universe, rather than, and that also gives the reason why you're questing. Because even though you solve this one time loop, maybe there's other time loops around this world, and maybe there's a massive wild magic storm encompassing the world, and you can combine that with Hadar and other giant big bads to really get this going. So what starts off as a quick recon mission soon ends in a longer possible campaign.
Yeah, see, we got to campaign levels. We got there.
We're always giving you some options here at Filling in the Gaps Rerolled. Starts off as a one-shot, ends with the campaign, and by the end of the episode, we're all saying, I really want to play this one.
Oh, just give away the whole cow, why don't you? Yeah, that's us. But
so do we want to stick with the village idea of them coming to a village, start small scale and branch out?
I like the idea of it being a village. I like the idea of, and then quite frankly, again, if the players really enjoyed this and enjoyed the freedom of, well, I don't want to just settle on one character, then be a Modron again, and then just keep doing that from town to town, and just keep upping the different character levels of the people in different towns. And you can have a great campaign without any commitment, and everyone, for all those forever DMs who wrote 40 players or 40 characters and I'm never going to use all these. No, you can. It's your time.
In addition to that, you could also break up some of the missions, because I'm assuming these fused forms are not great to have around forever. So you could play a band of Modrons that are hunting down these Hybridrons, or whatever you want to call them, because they're not supposed to exist. They were a useful tool to break the time loop, but now they can't be out there because it's an unlock.
Now that's interesting.
There is something called, sorry, Malcolm, there is something called the rogue Modron. So maybe once you fuse, they start to pick up the human tendencies, or the original host's tendencies, and they start to not follow Primus or such like that, That could be cool. Then your first players become the NBC party, or the big bad party.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. What I was going to say was because I wasn't sure how you were thinking there, David, on whether or not that was a physical thing, because I viewed it a lot like the Modron become a spiritual form when they appear or a spectral form when they appear to the other ones, going will you fuse with me? And then them merging in that way. So yeah. I wasn't sure if that was going to show up physically, but I like kind of how you took it, Sam, to that element of, oh, well, there's tendencies and different things they have that are not quite Modron, but not quite human either.
And I'm sure there would have to be, I think there would be something physical that shows this kind of merging. Maybe an extra eye somewhere, just to represent the Modron.
Yeah, I think that's great, depending on what you pick, too, because the Tridon is like a triangle, and it's got a bunch of legs and arms, so you get an extra leg and arm in there, and such like that. So I think you are correct. I think there's a great way to infuse the different aspects of the drones. See, they're called Modrons, but when you get individually, they're drones. So I keep confusing the terminology here. But yeah, I think you have to name your village Decepticolony, of course, because you got Primus. And he's looking for the optimal way to run time. So that's where my mind goes.
Optimal time.
I went with Murrayville, but Murrayville for the man who started all the groundhogs.
Well, yeah, there's the mayor too. You could have him as an NPC.
Yes. I love that. There's some cheery guy who's completely oblivious to the fact that he's in a time loop.
Some guy who's happy about it too.
Do you want to fuse with me to get out of this time loop? Out of this what?
No! What? What are you talking about?
Some other guy just shouts, "Not again!" This is gonna be something special.
So what would break? What would be? How are they going to break the loop? And what happens when they do break the loop? Is the next question that I have.
For like the really easy option is you could just say that this wild magic storm kind of infused itself in an object that's hidden in town somewhere. And then you basically just need your party to go in and locate it and destroy it or negate it somehow. If you don't go with the wild magic, it could be from like a specific wizard. And so that way you have to actually have like combats and get to him in order to beat him and clear it out.
I like that. I was thinking of what if there's a band of like you said, a agency that went against Primus called the Time Squad. And they traveled throughout, future, past, and present, causing, different time lapse or different Groundhog Days happening throughout. And then your squadron of drones are there fighting them, or they're to find them and unravel the secret of this group. And if you keep it a one shot, that's why you keep, melding into different hosts to get higher and higher levels. So it's not really like leveling up the character itself. You're leveling up your drone to be able to take over higher level party adventurers and such like that.
I like that.
It could be something that's caused by a group of other fused Modrons. So like this is a way of trying to liberate you from Primus.
Did you just throw the Matrix in at the very end, Dave? Yeah. You're like, hey, what if I told you there's a life outside of being a Modron? Well, now I know what I'm going to do for the synopsis, let me tell you.
And so they basically create these time distortions knowing that you'll be sent here and that they can free you if you're merged with a human. You can listen to logic that's not Primus logic.
Yeah, because they pretty much obey anything and everything he says. Mm-hmm. They're lawful neutral, so they don't really care about good or evil. They just go and do what he asks them to do. So they can perform one simple task at a time and can relay a single message up to 48 words. So they're very much, a hive mind-esque tool, and they work together. So that's a great way to start off. And then as soon as you find a human compatible with you, or not human, but like a humanoid, a race or lineage from D&D or wherever you're playing, you can form into them. And then you start to gain their abilities and such. And then you're finally approached by another villager who says, "Come with me, I'd like to talk to you."
Come with me if you want to live your own life.
Would you like the red potion or the blue potion? But so what happens when they finally do break the loop? Do they enter the Matrix and now they're free to explore the world on their own, or are they sent back to Primus and try to seek freedom a different way if they want freedom?
I think that's when they sever their connection in a permanent way, because they're stepping outside of the area that they were sent to. So I think there is like a call and return function that goes for a limited amount of space. And then when they leave the town, it's like, oh, you are now permanently locked in that body, and we can't pull you out of it. That is who you are now. You are merged completely. And whether or not the people of Primus, the creatures of Primus, think that is a good thing well, I believe we stated that they don't, but whether or not they are immediately coming after you and what their plans are, I think is a very up to DM thing. I think what your characters can do is up to a DM as well, or DM and players, especially. But I imagine what you'd want to have them do is just like, hey, you're a human. You've never had, or you're a insert race of D&D character here or other RPG character here. you've never experienced really what life is like. Like, you haven't had ice cream. You haven't, like, gone and, like, fought dragons and stuff. Like, you're in it for the thrill now. Like, this is your first time living life and not having a reset point also. So that's also really interesting. Mm-hmm. So you can play with that element of, like, them realizing they're not immortal anymore. And the other group being like, hey, but don't die though, because there's no respawns now. You're in the real game. So kind of, again, another sort of, again, advanced tutorial with it of like, no, die all you want in there. The moment you step out and you click finish character creation, it's like, hey, guess what, buddy? Welcome to Dark Souls. So, yeah.
That's really good.
I really, again, now's the time where we say it. I really want to play this one.
Foreshadowing.
Definitely.
For sure, shadowing.
I think this could be really, really interesting, and there's a lot of ways to go with it. I like what we've mapped out here. For those of you guys who've stuck with us this long, listening to the episode, I hope you guys do too. Is there anything else that we're missing? That's for both you guys and also the audience. So, audience, let us know what you would do, and or those out there in the listener zone, let us know what you would do. And Sam and David, anything else you're thinking?
I think if this is if it's perpetrated by rogue Modrons, I think having encounters in that aren't necessarily deadly, but are fun would be good, just because it kind of gets you into the thrill of adventuring, and that's kind of what they want.
Now, can you explain fun a little more?
I don't know, just not like, you wouldn't throw like a terrifying zombie at them. You might throw something that, it's more fun to fight. Like something that's not on the scary side or the horror side of D&D. Something that's more on the, like, wrestling kobolds who run out and just want to, like, grapple each other and grapple your party. Or goblins who are really bad with explosives and keep hurting themselves that your party has to just deal with.
I like that one.
Yeah, I think if you go through this route, it's definitely important to make the adventure fun, and the adventure, you want it alluring enough to get the Modron to try to break away from their hive mind mentality. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing is how are we going to break the loop? Is it like finally break or blowing out the torch that's causing the storm to happen? Just like what is the significant end to either to this one shot and or to the start of the campaign? So what's that definitive moment is what I'm missing.
So something I thought I had said, and I later realized I said it in my brain and then did not say it on this audio format podcast, where, people can hear it, was David, you had mentioned, or Sammy had mentioned, an object being there. I pictured it kind of like a lightning rod, like it brings the storm. Mm-hmm. So you get rid of that, it's like the storm dissipates. And maybe it's not even an intentional thing. Maybe it's not supposed to be. It was not done maliciously, because I very much like the idea of this town just happens to have this happen. Or, again, using the rogue Modron, they're like, yeah, we'll put a wild magic storm here. This will cause this to happen, and they'll have to come for it.
I like it just being like a button they can turn off. Like, once they have the meaningful conversation, like, once they think you've been through enough that you have experienced what life is like, they're just like, okay, well, we're done here, click, and it ends. But if you continue to be, like, loyal to Primus, that can, like, bring about a fight at the end, where you're struggling over trying to get that control device and destroy it, so that they can't keep doing this.
Oh, so we're gonna have them revealed before the ending that there's rogue Modron.
Yeah, I would think so. You would have to, or else there's no point in them continuing. I like that. I also think maybe if you're doing like a lightning rod or such, maybe make it a very important object to the villagers. That way it's a little harder than like, I'm going to go and press this button. It's how do I convince to break this? How do I do my job as a good Modron servant? And maybe the rogue Modrons are the ones who let slip that once your mission's done, once you destroy this and you don't follow us, your time as a drone is done. So then your players have to choose if they're going to continue, like this is the end. You've fused, you've served your purpose, you have stopped the storm, or you could stop the storm and try to go and like go with them and keep yourself bonded with this NPC you taken over.
I'm thinking, I've been watching a lot of One Piece lately with one of my friends, and you were saying something important to the town. Something important to the town that deals with time that's really good, of course, is a clock tower, but since we're doing a bit more ancient than that, how about a giant bell? Could be because it's something that goes off about hourly. It's something that would be, so you'd get that feeling of every time you start the day, you hear the dong,
That's good.
dong, dong of the bell, and you're like, I guess we're back again.
And that can even be,
oh my gosh, we're back again.
like, one of the first times that there's a TPK. You'd be like, and you fall, and you've died, and the bells toll, and you wake up in bed. I think that's a good transition scene.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The 3 times, fixing it very much Back to the Future, fix the clock tower. All right, I think that would work really well then.
Okay, well, with that, I think we're ready to move into the recap and synopsis.
I'm on synopsis,
It's like I
think, right?
Yep.
and I'm on the recap.
Feels like I do that a lot.
So what we've come up with today, overall, your party is a group of Modrons that are part of a task force that deal with time anomalies. You've been sent to the small town of Murrayville, which is currently stuck in a time loop. Your goal is to get inside, discover the source of the time loop, and get rid of it, so that time can go back to normal here. It can follow the law of Primus. In order to penetrate through the barrier, you have a device that lets you bond with one of the villagers inside, with their consent, of course. After bonding with the people, you need to go through their lives day by day in this time loop until you figure out what the cause is. As you move through, you might find out that your NPC, your villager host, is incompatible with you, so you may switch to a different NPC in town. Eventually, you and your task force are able to discover the source. It's coming from a bell tower in town. So making your way into the bell tower, you encounter different waves of odd, strangely merry creatures that are acting as guardians that you have to fight your way through. And as you learn their tactics, they defeat you, but you get further and further each time you penetrate deeper into the tower. Finally making it to the end, you encounter other fused Modrons. They offer you the chance to continue your life free from the decree of Primus, or you can end the time loop and go right back.
Okay. Oh, this is the part where I do the thing, isn't it? Okie doke. As you approach the bell, finally figuring out that was the solution all along, you reach it, you run up the stairs and reach the roof, and find figures standing there waiting for you. One large Goliath in leather armor walks up to you saying, you finally solved it. You finally figured it out. Now, the question becomes, have you learned anything? You stand there confused, looking at him, uncertain of his intentions or what he wants you to say. Well, that's quite all right. I have a much simpler question for you. Are you going to live your life as it is now, or return to Primus? Because one of those things I can't allow. And he pulls out a great hammer and goes, and that's return to Primus. What do you do?
Love it. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Filling in the Gaps Rerolled. The music you listen to, our theme music, is Today by Linby off of their album Drive. If you like it, you can hear more from them at linby.bandcamp.com. They're also on Spotify, and Linby is spelled Lindby, or on their actual play podcast, Bombarded. You can find all of us on Twitter. My handle is at DMMambo5.
Hi, I'm Malcolm. I was your theme host, and I'm at The Ruler of Rhyme, but follow the show at FitGD instead. At FitGD instead, man.
Taking my lines away, Malcolm. Taking my lines.
I have been David. You can follow me on Twitter at Daedra18. That is DAEDRA18.
And like Malcolm said, you can follow the show at FitGD or our Discord server where we like to talk. And you guys can give us help on our campaigns. We can help you with your campaigns. And you can give us new suggestions for our themes and scenario table. We are always looking for them. Please help us. Yep, we are an Obtuse Audio Studios podcast. That's obtuse. Wow, I keep wanting to say combine those words together. Give me a second. I'm going to redo that line for you, noob. We are an Obtuse Audio Studios podcast. You can learn more about Obtuse Audio Studios at obtuseaudio.com. Obtuse Audio. If I haven't said it enough, it's Obtuse Audio. Don't forget to give us, we are filling in the gaps rerolled, a 5-star review on Apple's iTunes as I spiral out of control here. The show is edited by our audio gremlin, Andrew Brown, and you can follow them at xnubinator912x on the Twitter. That's Obtuse Audio Studios.
Don't worry. I completely tripped over Fit GD&D today, so it's one of them days.
Bye, Obtuse Audio Studios. Just find us.
What's in your thoughts? Oh, what's in your mind? What fills your head and what leaves it behind? It's too much today. It's too much today.
Obtuse Audio.